through the five strengths as they're described in the Buddhist one of the Buddhist lists, or also the faculties that develop into powers. And we're on to Sati, commonly translated as mindfulness, but as many of you know, we prefer the word awareness. So, as I said the other day about it, on energy, which is also on many lists, but what changes on the different lists is not what it is so much, but how it functions. So I'm going to list out some of the ways um, awareness or mindfulness is strengthening. But first, I want to look at the flip side, the absence of awareness. Okay, probably it's never completely absent unless, we're brain dead or something like that, but less of it when it's not functioning very much. And by the way, looking at the absence of, that's a pretty Buddhist approach. So let's consider when there's little awareness of our internal states and also what's going on around us. One definition of mindfulness or awareness. We'd be constantly tossed by the winds of change. And that just seems powerless to me rather than powerful. I mean, it almost seems dangerous. Um, Now, I'm going to give a few examples, and in each of these examples, there's more than the absence of mindfulness. There might be the absence of other things as well. But I immediately imagine being a pedestrian, and I'm crossing a street, and I'm not aware that there's a speeding car coming my way. That's dangerous. Or maybe, not being aware of what's going on for ourselves health-wise and making really bad decisions because we're not aware. Maybe even we can include Linda in this, that her not feeling well this morning, if she hadn't been aware of it, had she pushed herself, I don't know, it could have been, well, dangerous might be too strong a word, but certainly led to feeling sicker. Or giving in to the countless scams we get in our email and text. And of course, there's so many, it's not just an absence of awareness, it might be an absence of knowing what's a scam, but there's so many examples where when we are more aware, we are more powerful and we are in less danger. But this isn't easy, really, what we're talking about being present and aware of our own experience. Um, you know, dukkha, the difficulties in life, it's a knee-jerk reaction to turn the other way, right? And much of our instinctual is what I mean by knee-jerk. And much of modern life pulls us away from our center. We live in an extroverted online culture which keeps drawing us out to text, to emails, to our phones, to our devices. So that's why we really need to cultivate awareness or mindfulness or sati now. In fact, I think that's why it's become so dominant and it's all over the place as awareness, mindfulness. It's because I think we need it more than ever in our modern culture. Um, and it's so we need to cultivate it, and we need to just keep on cultivating it because there's all these forces pulling us in other directions. This is not a one and done. Again, more ongoing and developing. And I think we really need times and places and groups that guide us inward, like this daily online meditation we're all choosing to be at this morning. But flipping it around to the positive, what we're talking about here again is being present, being aware of the flow of our experience. And of course, our experience is unpredictable, complex, and layered. So the first thing why it strengthens us, is it grounds us, it grounds our mind, and that sort of grounding allows us to respond appropriately, and also allows us to become more aware of our reactions. And in that awareness, there really is the possibility of not acting out from a place of reactivity. And it's a strength because, you can experience more and more, you can face experience with less confusion and avoidance. And I believe that confusion and avoidance deplete our strength. The second way it's a strength is it supports ethical behavior. When you're mindful, you're more aware of your actions, speech, and intention, and importantly, how they affect others and yourself. So therefore, you're better able to make wise decisions, decisions that are rooted in care and awareness, rather than habit or impulse. Again, habit or impulse are the stronger pulls, but awareness helps us pause, take a look, and make some choices that might be more rooted in care. And it helps us develop an ethical safeguard from potentially harmful behaviors that might otherwise be enacted unconsciously or without awareness. And you might not even know you've done something that's harmful, which is, again, quite harmful. The third is it helps us integrate experience. And this is one of my actually favorites. It allows us to observe our thoughts, feelings, and sensations without becoming overwhelmed or immediately trying to fix or change them. And that impulse to fix and change, that is very pervasive. And it's a norm in many groups. We have to do stuff to make sure it doesn't happen in our group. We set up structures that kind of steer away from that. So instead, maybe you can be aware, this is awareness of your impulse to fix. And maybe redirect your attention to being more aware at first, and maybe for a while before you try to change or fix yourself or others. And it's a strength because that builds emotional resilience, patience. That's a big one, huh? To pause before you act. And the capacity to learn from experience, which maybe is what our groups are all about, developing the capacity to learn from experience. So awareness guards the mind. And in the early texts, in the early Buddhist texts, Sati is described as a gatekeeper. It's kind of interesting term, I think. Protecting the mind from unwholesome states by recognizing them early. Helping you remember your values, helping you remember your intentions. And lastly, at least in this list, of course we could make many other lists of how Sati is a strength, but in this particular orientation, it connects with wisdom. Because it doesn't just notice things. We become aware of what matters. We become aware of patterns and bring insights, and alongside of investigation, we cultivate greater understanding. So in other words, it helps you remember what you've learned and apply it with discernment. But wisdom is just another one on that list of strengths, and we'll go into much more about it in a Dharma talk later this week. Probably that's my talk on Wednesday. So wisdom, of course, is one of the great benefits of this practice that we do together. Okay, good. I'll end the talk there.